Hi, I am Deepak Karamungikar and I have written 8 books. Today we are going to talk about one of the most important punctuation marks in the English language, which is the semicolon. It's a dot and just under that there is a comma. That symbol is a semicolon. Most of the software engineers know it very well because we use it at the end of a line in coding, in Java, JavaScript and so many other languages. Today we are going to see how to use it. Not just how to use it, we are going to see how to master it. There are simple rules around it and today we will see what those are. So by definition, a semicolon is actually a pause. It is a pause and it is used between two independent clauses. That means two independent sentences, and it is used in between. It is a stronger pause than a comma and a weaker pause than a full stop. So if you have to consider the order, first is the comma, a weak pause, then is the semicolon, slightly stronger pause, and then there is the full stop, which is the ultimate stop, which is also called period in US. So why do we use semicolons? Semicolons first of all bring you respect. If you use semicolons appropriately, any person who understands how they are used, if they look at your writing and they see that you are using them appropriately, they automatically respect you a lot. They bring a logical flow to your writing. They also prevent disjointed, broken writing. And semicolons also help you handle complexity cleanly. They add nuance to your writing. And you can clearly control what you want to emphasize on if you use semicolons appropriately. Semicolons help you reduce clutter and make your writing elegant. Anyone who looks at your writing, they will say, wow. So what does this semicolon do? It has two jobs. Job number one, it connects two independent sentences that are closely related. That means there are two sentences which are independent of each other. Independently they make sense. However, these two are closely related somehow. In that case, the semicolon connects these two sentences. That is job number one. Job number two, it separates complex items in a list which already have commas in them. Let's look at this example. I was tired, semicolon, I kept walking. So these two sentences, I was tired is independent, I kept walking is also independent. These two are somehow connected because even though he was tired, he kept walking. That's the meaning basically. But if you want to use a semicolon, I was tired, semicolon, instead of a full stop, instead of a comma, I was tired, semicolon, I kept walking, full stop. End of story. This is how you use a semicolon. Two sentences have to be closely related and they have to be independent. That means individually they can stand on their own. Let's look at another example. The plan looked simple is one sentence. The execution proved difficult is another sentence. They are both independent. They are meaningful and they make sense. However, you can join them using a semicolon. The plan looked simple, semicolon. The execution proved difficult. See how you can join two sentences, and because of this, what happens? The plan looked simple. You mentally take a pause when you read it, and then the execution proved difficult. Now let us look at how to use semicolon with transitional words. What are transitional words? Transitional words are words that help you establish continuity in sentences. Therefore, moreover, subsequently, consequently, and also, however, these are called transitional words. So, how do you use them? Transitional words should be immediately followed by the semicolon. That means you put the semicolon just before the transitional words. Let us look at some examples. I want to leave. However, the meeting continued. I want to leave is an independent sentence. The meeting continued is another independent sentence. And there is a semicolon. And you're also adding however. So this is another way you can use. Let's look at one more example. The data was flawed. Therefore, the conclusion changed. The data was flawed, one sentence. The conclusion changed, another sentence. And you can add them or combine them using a semicolon and a transitional word. The data was flawed, semicolon. Therefore, the conclusion changed. Now let us talk about semicolon's job number two, which is to separate complex items which already have commas in them. Let's look at this example. We invited Raj the writer, Neha the editor, and Sam the designer. Raj, comma, the writer is already one item in that list. Neha, the editor, is the second item in that list. Like that, if you have items which already have commas in them, you can't put another comma. You can't say Raj, comma, writer, comma, Neha, comma, editor, right? That's confusing. To avoid that, to separate items which already have commas in them, we use a semicolon. Another example, I visited Albany, New York, comma, Hyderabad, Telangana, comma, Sydney, Australia, and Dubai, UAE. So, Albany, New York is one item in that list. Albany, comma, New York. Hyderabad, comma, Telangana is another item in that list. So, like that, you want to separate items which already have commas, you use a semicolon. This is pretty simple, right? And now, let us look at some rules that will make your flow flawless. What are these rules? Rule number 1, do not use semicolon with fragments, means pieces of sentences which do not make any sense. The sentences, both of them, remember rule number 1, they have to be complete, they have to be independent. That means they should stand on their own grammatically. They cannot be flawed, or they cannot be pieces of whole sentences. Look at this example. I enjoy writing, semicolon, especially at night. What is wrong in this? I'll tell you what is wrong. Especially at night is not a whole sentence. Especially at night means what? Especially at night means a lot of things. Don't use it. Both these sentences have to be independent and they have to make sense. Only then you can use a semicolon. Never use them with fragments. In such cases where you are not sure if the sentence stands independently, use a comma. It's simple. You don't have to use semicolon. The 90% of this whole thing is about identifying where to use it. If you're able to identify that properly, 90% of your job is done. So if you're not able to identify if that opportunity is appropriate to use a semicolon, just use a comma. Another rule is never use a capital letter right after the semicolon. There is never going to be a capital letter right after semicolon. It's always small letter unless it is a proper noun. If you are talking about someone, a person, all right, proper noun, unless it proper noun is name of a person, place, thing, whatever. If and only if it is a proper noun, use a capital right after a semicolon. Simple. She finally moved cities, semicolon, Delhi felt like home. Delhi is a proper noun. Semicolon right after semicolon. D is capital because Delhi is a proper noun. And both these sentences stand independently. So that is appropriate usage with capitalization where required. Where is it required? When you use a proper noun. And to some closing notes, please understand that if you use a full stop or a period in between these two independent sentences, it is still right. It is still correct. What semicolon will do is it will elevate your writing. Okay, it is not wrong to use a period or a full stop, but using a semicolon actually uplifts your writing. It looks elegant. Look at this example. I failed the exam, full stop, I tried again. I failed the exam, semicolon, I tried again. In the first one, okay, it looks pretty simple, but it is correct. Second one, there is a pause because there is a thought continuity from the first sentence to the second sentence. That is what the semicolon does. So here is a quick recap of everything that we've learned in this video about semicolons. When do you use them? You use them to connect two sentences which are independent and are already meaningful on their own. However, there is a thought continuity between the first sentence and the second sentence. Then you use a semicolon. It is also used in another case, which is to separate items in a complex list, and the items in that list already have a comma in them. To avoid confusion, we use semicolon. And what is a semicolon? It is a pause. It is a pause stronger than a comma and weaker than a full stop. And use it before a transitional word. However, therefore, also somehow just before that, use it. Do not use capital letters right after the semicolon unless the word that is following the semicolon is a proper noun. And finally, if you were to employ the semicolon in framing your sentence, just ask two simple questions. Question number 1, are these sentences independent? Can they stand on their own? If the answer is yes, go to the next question. The next question is, are these two sentences related? If the answer to both these questions is yes, just go for it. Thank you very much for watching this lesson. Please subscribe for more and share it with your friends. Thank you.